Okay, here we are with a mostly complete QCX. Well, the QCX is complete. It is mostly ready to be boxed up. And I just want to go over real quick how I'm going about putting it in an enclosure. To start with, this is probably not the easiest, in fact, I'm sure it's not the easiest way to go about it. I'm using a Hammond 1550 aluminum case. I like these. I like the Hammond products. I used a similar one, but much larger, for my U-Bit-X. And I think it came out real nice. It's sharp looking. It's a full aluminum box. You've got easier options with the extruded aluminum where the top and bottom separate, and then you've got like a front and back panel. You've got a lot more mobility and accessibility to put things together in there. This gets to be a bit rough where you have to be able to fit everything into the box as is. But I found this one that is just the right size for it. And it's tight. It's a tight fit, but it does just fit like a charm. The first thing I did is ordered 10 millimeter spacers to replace the 12 millimeter spacers on the bottom of the board, because this case is just a bit shallow. My biggest concern was, let's see if it'll focus, this voltage regulator here. I did not want that. You can see it just peaks above the level of the box. Fortunately, the lid has an inset on it, so I've got about 2 millimeters of clearance on the inside between the top of this voltage regulator and the lid. I accomplished that by swapping the 12 millimeter spacers on the bottom of the board for 10 millimeter spacers. Of course, drill the holes for the BNC. I should have used masking tape, but I don't know where my masking tape is, so I used electrical tape. I removed the key jack from off the board, pulled it off board so that it could sit flush. Otherwise it would sit inside and I'd have to cut a larger hole for the jack to fit in through the case into or for the plug to fit through the case into the jack. So I moved that off board so it could stick through the case. I bought this power jack. It's a little bigger on the inside and made things a little tough, but it's gonna look good. It's nice and clean. It's a back mount, so that nut will be on the inside. It'll be nice and clean. The earphones, of course, I had to pull off board as well to make them reach. I've got just a little bit more room on this side. The one thing that I wish I had room for that I don't is a fuse holder. I included one of those on the U-Bit-X. This one I have not seen too much, well, I haven't seen any talk about needing a fuse. I may, if I decide I want it, I may just put those in line on the power cord. The other thing I did is I pulled the two buttons off board and replaced those. I may replace these someday with something a little nicer looking. They're the same buttons I used over here on the U-Bit-X. And they're decent. They're not the best ever. But those will come up through the lid and just bolt on. I really toyed with, really tried to pull the volume and the rotary encoder off board and to mount those on the lid. Ultimately, I decided that these were best left on. My son has a 3D printer that he just loves printing anything and everything on, so I'll just have him make some extenders for me to bring those up and just have the knobs right on top of the lid. So that should work out well. The last thing that I really kind of noodled over was the interface for the GPS. I just wasn't quite sure what to do, but you really just need anything with 4 contacts. And I have a nice, long, thick, high-quality USB-A to USB-A cord, 6 feet long, sitting around unused. So I decided that USB would be the way to go, put that thing to use, pull it out of the drawer. And I found these jacks that I think is just going to make a nice, clean, sharp look on the side. These were, I mean, this was the most expensive single additional component. That was a $10 piece right there, and it is a bit bulky. The challenge that I had was fitting it in here. The nice thing is that I did not, if we could focus, I did not put the micro switch on. Sorry, interrupted by the 7-year-old. I didn't put the micro switch on because I really didn't see that I would have any use for it. So what that did is it allowed me to just bend these 2 resistors right here. Where are we? Bend these 2 resistors out of the way of that USB jack. I still need to wire that up, but I think it will work out very nice. I'll put a couple other standoffs on the LCD screen here, and then we'll drill some holes in the lid on the corners and put a little piece of plexiglass over that just to keep it protected. The one thing I did want to talk about is how I cut these square holes. You see I've got that nice cut for the USB jack there, and I'll need one for the LCD. The way I do that, this may not be the best way, probably not the best way. There's probably better tools to use, whatever, but this is what I've found that works given the tools that I have on hand. What I do is I just mask that off, and then I take this little spring-loaded center punch. Probably bought that at Harbor Freight. I've had it for years, so I don't recall exactly. And what you do is you just set that on there and give it a push, and it'll give you, may not focus there. There we go. It'll give you a nice little dimple. So I just take that and I just punch dimples all around, and then come through with a 1/16 inch drill bit and drill these little holes. I'll come back through this with a slightly larger drill bit and hopefully connect the vast majority of those holes. Just perforate it and pull this centerpiece out. And then I just used, for the small one, I used this small file, but any standard file. I've got a larger standard size file that I'll use on this hole. It's, you know, it's aluminum. It's less than 2 millimeters thick, so it works real nice and easy. Come in and you see that I've stayed well away from the mask. So with the file, I'll come in and file that down to a nice square hole. It's a bit of work, but it works. Then I'll paint it, and I'll show you what it looks like painted. I'm excited to get this done. Okay, here is the finished product. It's painted, everything's attached, all buttoned up and ready to go. So I painted it this cobalt blue, which I think will look real good. I'm a fan of it. I'm gonna order a 20 meter version next, and I'm gonna have to decide on another color. But starting at the bottom, we've got the bumpers attached on the bottom. I've made a couple of these enclosures now, and it just barely occurred to me that rather than try to work around the PCB screws, why not just attach the bumpers with the same screws that attach the PCB board? I clearly didn't do that this time, but I may do that next time. Have 4 fewer things on the bottom here. Let's see, on this side, the BNC, of course, the key jack, and the USB jack, and I think it all looks real nice. One thing I may do on the next version is get a different chassis mount BNC, just so it doesn't stick out quite so far. Maybe have a little cleaner look there. I really like these silver accents on it against that paint. And then on this side, that power jack and the headphone jack. That power jack I think is real slick. The one thing that I would probably do different on this side is that I do have a little more room to push this headphone jack just a little further forward, just to give a little more space in there. Then of course the plastic over the LCD screen. Got the 2 buttons, and the spacers, or the extenders for the knobs, are just like that there. You can see I went through a few iterations on those. These are, this one in particular is quite wobbly. This one's not so bad, but a little bit wobbly. You know, but it works. Neither of them pulls out, so they'll do the job until I decide to rework it. So all that remains is to go ahead and attach that power and put that speaker in there and attach an antenna if we can. Hard to do it with one hand. And that thing is loud. Up and running. So that's it. That is the completed project right there.